All right. Well, welcome everyone to the February 2022 Edmonton Talk meeting. Very exciting first talk of the year for Edmonton. If you are interested in subscribing to the Edmonton Tableau community forums, you can scan the QR code with your phone and get to the registration site. Whether you're attending for your first talk or returning to your fifth, we're happy to have you join us today. This meeting will be recorded, so the recording will be made available on Tableau's YouTube channel and the Edmonton Tableau user group forum. As I said, easy peasy, just scan the code and it'll take you to the page and you can register and get all the information. My name, Carlos Guerrero. I work for Onware, and with me is Artie as well. So Artie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm Xinyu Liu. You can call me Artie. I'm with Onware for a year now, mainly working as the business intelligence consultant. If you can see this big chart on the right, it's a flow we built with the Tableau prep. It was built for one of the clients, was building based off all messy database. They were using MR8, Cyrus, NetSuite, all those kind of the database. And then it's more than 10 small pieces. And then we use the Tableau prep to join. And at the end, we output as the overall entire the invoice data. So that's one of the cool things we do. We also do some analysis from the Tableau desktop and also other cool stuff. So I'll hand it over back to Carlos to do a brief introduction of our company.
Thank you. Yeah, aligned to what Artie just shared with you, we also do, so we are a software developer here in Edmonton. For those who don't know us, we have three main parts of our business: a collaborative contract administration software, which is tailored towards architects and those in the construction industry. We also perform custom software solutions, and to what Artie just shared with you, we do end-to-end business intelligence solutions. You can scan the barcode top right of your screen, and you'll be able to see more information about Onware. Going on to the next slide. If you have any comments or feedback, we would love to hear from you. We will share the screen later in the presentation or at the end. This feedback is collected to help, of course, make your experience better for future talks. And as a token of appreciation, we pick randomly some of those comments. Of course, you need to provide your name, contact info so that we know who to send the prizes to, because there's prizes. And yeah, it's fun. Feedback will help us do better for next opportunities. Moving on to the agenda for today, we will have, well, the welcome introduction. Later, next, we'll have very cool information from Tableau and how that works at the City of Edmonton with Iain, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. After that, we'll talk about case studies and Tableau for the grocery industry with Daniel. And after that, we'll have Shah from Tableau talk and share some information about new features and for Tableau. Then we'll do, of course, a Q&A at the end of each of the sessions. We will do a final wrap up. And yeah, that's basically it for today. During the meeting, please make sure that you send your questions via the chat box, and we'll be able to gather those questions and ask them to our presenters or speakers today. And without further ado, let's welcome Iain Gillis. He is a highly skilled and dedicated business analyst with more than 10 years of experience spanning project management, business analysis, process analysis, new technology integration, and stakeholder management. Throughout the years, he has gained a verifiable track record in assisting with hardware and software systems, installation, testing, upgrades, and deployment. He's achieved many accomplishments and demonstrated ability in engaging with internal and external stakeholders, establishing deliverables, monitoring KPIs, and engineering short and long-term business strategies. Iain is looking forward to participate in many upcoming projects, enhancing operational efficiency and developing a standardized process that would improve productivity and deliver bottom-line results. In addition to all that, Iain is highly skilled in supporting with project development and implementing agile methodologies to promote business success. So I'll now pass it over to Iain.
Well, thank you very much. That's a nice reminder to maybe update my LinkedIn bio. Thank you for the introduction. I shall present my screen here. Who can share? Oh my, this is a slightly different view. Off to the races, screen 2. All seeing the title slide here, Tax Data and Drafting Team Assessment and Taxation Branch. Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, so quick roadmap of what I have in mind. Give you a quick introduction to Tableau at the City of Edmonton overall, talk about some publicly available city data, give you a quick public service announcement from my branch, and then get into what my team does, how we do it. Got a couple of quick case studies, and then 3 little rapid fire kind of general purpose Tableau tips that you might take away. That sounds good. Let's go for it. So, City of Edmonton, Hearts Tableau. It's been a corporate self-service analytical tool for the City of Edmonton for about a decade. It began with a pilot in the transit department in 2012. And in the branch that I work in, assessment and taxation, in around 2014, they led a broader adoption at the corporate solution. That's when it really took off. There is a link to the bottom, on the bottom of this slide of a talk from 2016, which is actually hosted as an on-demand webinar from Tableau, given by Stefan Contra, then the Chief Analytics Officer for the City of Edmonton. And so you're welcome to check that out. A lot of that is still quite relevant to how we use it as a corporation. City of Edmonton loves open data. The City of Edmonton really believes that we've signed on to the Open Data Charter in the value of open data and open government. City of Edmonton has been named Canada's most open city by the Public Sector Digest every year that index has been released. So if you go to data.edmonton.ca, you'll find stories, dashboards, charts, and data sets. We do encourage you to take a look and maybe build something for yourself. As a Tableau group, our open data portal is powered by Socrata, which publishes an OData feed. Tableau has native support for those feeds, so it's really easy to spin up Tableau desktop instance to get up and running. In our open data portal, you will find some property assessment data going back to 2012 and some property information data sets, which are among the most commonly viewed on the open data portal. And my branch is responsible for providing those, and we analyze that data and more. So this is the public service announcement. So this speaks to transparency, but it's definitely not open. This is private information that you can log into. This is really only applicable to those property owners in Edmonton. myproperty.edmonton.ca is your trusted, secure source for property assessment and tax information. I encourage you to go there. If you own a property in Edmonton, you can sign up for electronic notices. You can view your current and past assessment and tax notices. There are links to resources about assessment and taxation to answer your questions. It's easy to get in touch with someone if you have further questions. And in the interests of transparency, we do encourage you to take time to carefully review your property's assessment information, and do get in touch with an assessor if you have any questions. So I've referred to the City of Edmonton. This came up as a question just before everybody joined. It does refer to the geopolitical entity that you can point to on a map and plug into GPS. I should say that it rests in the Hardy of Treaty 6 territory here in the province of Alberta, and is on the homelands of Métis Nation Region 4. But the City of Edmonton also refers to a corporation. And that's what I'm talking about when I say how the City of Edmonton uses Tableau. I work in the assessment and taxation branch within the City of Edmonton. That branch works to ensure fair and transparent property assessment and taxation that meets provincially legislated standards. Now, these operations are critical to meeting revenue requirements to fund city programs and services, everything from police to fire to parks to recreation centers to my salary. And we also collect on behalf of the province of Alberta, the provincial education property tax requisition. Now, just very high level, the organization of our branch is kind of three wings. Two of them are captured in the name. We have assessment operations and taxation operations. The third is policy and data quality. And my team is within that third wing, tax data and drafting. So when I say tax, I mean TACS, that's the Taxation Assessment and Collection System. That is the core CAMA, or computer-assisted mass appraisal application that underpins branch operations. It's been in continuous development and customization since 1995. It's an Oracle application, and it stores account information on every one of the over 400,000 properties in the City of Edmonton. So we get to our team. Primarily, the team that I work on is internal support. So we do data analytical and business analytical roles, primarily within the branch, but we also offer support to other areas of the city. Some of those roles include data governance around that tax system. We act as an interface between business users and OCT, which is Open City and Technology. Most other organizations will call that IT. We look after things like data literacy in the branch, data visualization, data analysis, and that data analysis, we have ad hoc and ongoing kind of reports. Specifically, we've got two broad categories. One refers to properties or accounts. And so that's some data modeling, data visualization, and data provision, grabbing data out of tax and other sources. So a big one is permit information. So if you build a new garage, or you tear down an old home and do an infill with two skinny homes, or you put in a garden suite, we do some of that data integration, which comes from an external system, and put it together with tax for our assessors to do their work. Customer inquiries, it's currently in the middle of the inquiries period. So we sent out the assessment notices to all those 400,000 properties in the middle of January. They have 70 days to inquire about questions and make sure that everything is up to date. So we look at customer inquiry data and work with our customer experience team about some of those metrics and people who use my property and how often and how we can better enhance customer experience with our citizens in the City of Edmonton. The other broad category is people analytics, which is somewhat separate from HR. It is having to do with workforce planning. I suppose tangentially, it also refers to, security and access to tax. One of the big ones that I'll talk about in just a moment has to do with workforce planning, so how people spend their time in assessment operations. And then the data modeling piece involves connecting our tax information with spreadsheets and calendars and timesheet information on our payroll system, just to make sure that we're delivering efficient, good value to the City of Edmonton. Now, getting to the part that we're all here for, tools. We have tax, which has some inbuilt reporting, but the City of Edmonton is a Google shop at a corporate level. So we do some work with Google Sheets and charts and a little bit of AppScript and Data Studio. Our primary provider of what I like to call parboiled data, which is just tabular information that we pass on, that we curate and make sure that the joins and aggregations and filters are set up correctly before we pass on that tabular data to other areas of the business for them to do further analysis. We use Webby, which is SAP Business Objects Web Intelligence. That acts as a semantic layer that sits in front of the Oracle application tax and gives us a nice interface for answering all sorts of business questions. And surprise, surprise, this is why we're all here. We also use Tableau. So I spoke to Heinz, who invited me to speak here today. There are some legislative restrictions that prevent me from sharing in this open venue some of our high impact and high value fact, some of our most high impact and high value work in Tableau. So those are the legislative requirements. I'm still going to tell you a little bit. So it's more of a tell first, and then we'll get to showing later. So an early success story. I mentioned that we're in the inquiries period right now. As I said, we've got 70 days in the legislation. And in order to fulfill this strategy, which is communicate with ratepayers and respond to inquiries to ensure account accuracy and resolve outstanding issues directly with ratepayers, while contributing to this corporate strategy of building the city with trust and the confidence of its citizens, communities, partners, staff, and stakeholders. During that inquiry period, for many years, the intent was to make sure that people had timely access to someone on the phone. And so we had this expectation that the call volume would begin and stay high right through the inquiry period, and staffing levels were set up to match that. So it contributed, but the difficulty was that all that workforce planning piece, that made it difficult if you were planning for something that was quite different than the actuality. So George, who I think is on this call, one of my colleagues early on, set up this inquiries year over year in Tableau. And it's a very simple chart. It's just the number of inquiries over time. More call volume is a higher line. And what we found is that the reality was quite different from the expectation. And so what that enabled, first of all, it was an early win to get buy-in to this visual analytics platform. Simple as it is, a good visualization is often very simple. It enabled the ability to see year over year trends. Like, this is not a one-time thing. Every year it starts early and then tapers off. So it allowed for a tactical shift while still fulfilling that same strategy. And so that was the success. Some of the other benefits that we got out of setting up a Tableau data source to do this is that instead of doing a download from Webby or Oracle and then spitting it into Excel and doing a pivot table and looking at trends that way, set up the data source once and it just refreshes nightly, year over year. And so that was a great, simple little exercise that was a very effective use of Tableau for our branch. A little more recent, my colleague Tintu John, who's also on this call, she's been leading this assessment operations dashboard. So this is, again, focusing heavily on people analytics. We were approached about a year ago from the business. They keep track of a whole stack of metrics and KPIs in branch assessment operations. Previously to engaging our team, this would involve downloading reports out of tax, downloading some tables from Web Intelligence. There was some stuff stored in Excel, some stuff in Google Sheets. The data manipulation involved things like manually inserting columns and copy and pasting formulas from a procedures document. There's a lot of copy and paste. There was some work in Google Charts just built into Excel. There were some pivot tables and some pivot charts. The result of all of that manual work was that it took about 6 weeks to produce one set of reports, which is really pretty long turnaround time. It's very manually intensive. Because of the manual work just being inherently error prone, that also slowed things down because you'd have to do things twice or 3 times just to make sure that you got it right. So they said, could we do this in Tableau? And we said, yeah, we can. And so this is just a subset. As you can see, I hope you can see, we've got this at a glance, which is a number of these KPIs have partially redacted the information. We also have additional tables for inquiries, complaints, supplementary assessments. Those are assessments levied against properties that are completed in the middle of the year, and some other metrics, including SAP, which are those human resources data. So assessment operations has been really happy with this, not least because it's so timely. All of that 6-week turnaround is no longer an issue. So they're getting better data. They're getting multi-year data much more quickly in a format that is easy for them to use, which they're reportedly very happy with. Yeah, that's been a really big win. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so we went from a 6-week delay to a 24-hour delay, thanks to our Tableau. We get consistency of formatting, which was certainly not the case with all of the copy paste in Excel and Sheets, etc. We get the benefits of cross-filtering by time frame and drilling down by team. And we also get sophisticated information-rich tooltips and permissions through Tableau Server. So for example, if you have an employee, Alice, it's very easy to lock down the SAP information so that only Alice and her supervisor can see her timesheet information. That was something that was very difficult to do in the old method. So Tableau gave us both visual and kind of data governance wins and ease of use, and everybody's very happy with it. So I suppose you'd actually like to see something. Case study number 3 is a building quality dashboard. All you need to know, in fact, all I know about building quality is this definition. Primary quality rating corresponds with the 2001 assessment manual, ranges from 00 to 09, which includes but is not limited to style, design, types of materials, and workmanship. So assessors are a provincially regulated body, and they have their own set of standards. It's like a college, like College of Physicians or teachers. So it's closely regulated, difficult exam to get into. And if you're an assessor, which I'm not, quality is something that triggers different job activities. So the brief came in and said, could we create a Tableau dashboard that would replace neighborhood building quality maps? So the old method was that neighborhood building quality maps were printed on a large color plotter. It was costly just because of, large format printing in full color is not cheap. It's time consuming. Paper can't readily be shared with multiple people, especially if you're off-site. And it's not easily searchable. So you might think, okay, what about PDFs? Well, PDFs aren't great for user interaction. Oh dear, here we go, sorry. You can see this kind of gray tinge to these colors. That's because the PDF needs to have account level information printed on the thing, because the interact, on hover, that doesn't exist. So we took this as kind of the template, is what we wanted to rebuild. This is what they were used to. And so we've got a mini map. We've got a map of all the parcels in a given neighborhood. We have a custom categorical color chart, and said, okay, how can we do this in Tableau that makes this a little more better? And this is what we came up with. It's maybe unimpressive at first, but there are some pretty powerful things. So here's our kind of prototype, if you like. And so what we built instead, oh, my action didn't work, apologies. Very closely related. There we are. You get some nice zooming action. We've reproduced the mini map, except now the mini map is interactive, so you can jump to any other neighborhood. And then I guess just to talk through it, how would you do this without Tableau? First of all, Tableau's mapping features make this really easy to do. If you make a change, it's just refreshed in the data source, and there's always one source of truth. If you have hard copies, even if they were PDFs under version control, that becomes messy because people can make copies of them and so on. And then if a property changes, that will be picked up in the Tableau data source. In a hard copy or PDF method, you'd have to maybe do a reprint or think of some way to annotate the file, or God forbid, track in a separate worksheet or workflow management tool, like the changes that happen when you're visually diffing a map with a text format. That doesn't work well. So we floated the first version of this, which we're missing the dots. And I received this message, boy, is this going to help the entire section out. I just showed it to 2 of our team leads. They were amazed. This was a big hit on the floor. They all said it was much easier than any other system to see their qualities in a neighborhood. But they asked, could we have this upgrade code? And so upgrade code just indicates that there's been some kind of an upgrade that triggers assessment operations on a property. And so in Tableau, that's just a layer that you can turn off or on. It's on here by default. That, you know, in PDFs, how would you do that? You need probably 2 separate pages or 2 separate printouts. And so Tableau gives us all of this great recency and just great mapping capability and zoom and interactivity and a single file instead of 400 files for all of the neighborhoods. And a really positive user experience. Like I've read some of that feedback and it was very well received. Additionally, this capability, if you have it over here, there are multiple accounts. So in cases of condos, I'm not going to drill down here, but in the Tableau iteration of this, an assessor can go in and for a particular account, actually view all of the individual sub-accounts. Again, there's really no way you could reasonably do that except using a tool like Tableau. You know, you'd need linked PDFs. Again, how do you handle the interactivity or multiple printouts? It's just a tricky problem that Tableau solved quite nicely. And so that has been a more recent version that I can actually share with you, where Tableau has been really well adopted and well used by the branch and very good return on investment. Back over here. Okay, so there ends the case studies. And now I promised you 3 rapid fire kind of quick tips that you might take away. So these are no longer the niche problems. These are just things that we've come up with in different parts of our niche problems that are more broadly applicable. Everything I've talked about so far is very heavy on assessment operations, which is very specific to our branch. So there is a little tool called Shepherd.js, which is for web applications, which I've used outside of work. And it renders, let's pop it up here real quick. Shepherd.js. So here's what you get. You get these little things, and it guides you through a web page or a web app. And it's a nice little way to introduce people to a new interface. So I thought, how could we emulate that using Tableau's inbuilt features? I wasn't interested in trying to build a complicated add-in or something just for web. We work primarily in Tableau desktop. So we thought, okay, we've got Tableau stories. Bearing in mind that a story is a sequence of visualizations that work together to convey information. It sounds an awful lot like guiding users through an app stepwise called a tour. And sometimes the simplest solution is best. This is like low tech. All you need is transparency and some basic photo editing skills. The process is you take a screenshot of your desired state in a dashboard. Then you add a semi-transparent layer, you add fully transparent cutouts, and you save it as a picture, and you add it to a story, and you repeat. So what that looks like is this. So you get this user orientation to the dashboard, and each story point says start by choosing a data type, and you can see what's going on. There's always a take me back, which is like the escape button in the Shepherd.js, and you step through, and it gives you this guided orientation to how to use the dashboard. I think in terms of like anybody who's trying to introduce a user, maybe a less technical user or someone who's new to your problem domain, you know, a data literacy lens just kind of makes this a really nice way to do it. And it's deceptively simple and effective. This is a small data set, but for more complicated data, particularly if you're publishing to a wide audience, there's not a ton of effort to put this together, and it's super, super clear. And you can really control the messaging to your user without getting in their way. At any time, take them back. And it's just hidden using a floating dashboard with that feature that brought out in 2020.2, I think. And so that's tip number 1, is how to do a guided user tour. Tip number 2, power search. So most users who are used to using Google expect their search experience just in life to just work. So just a basic nicety is when you're inputting a search box, trim the user's input and force all of your searching cases, unless you have a really strong case, not to say lowercase. Now, sometimes you need extra power. Tableau supports regular expressions. As I said, most users do not support regular expressions. Haha, I'm so funny. Now, what this allows you to do is hide certain amounts of complexity. So there's a single user input here on this search. And if I wanted to search for, I don't know, residential, just as a plain text case insensitive search, that works fine. But sometimes you can tuck away this extra capability. It says, here's some advanced search with some links for those who need it. So maybe you wanted to find anything with a number. So you use a regular expression character, \D, which is any digit. And there you get them. And you're like, okay, maybe I want a digit that exists only at the end of a code. Most users don't need it, but it's a single user interface. There's no separate combobulation to make it work. And it's actually pretty simple to do. So I mentioned, do your user the favor of trimming and casting everything in the same case. Regular expression's not that much harder. You just pass in this regular expression flag and then put your search input inside, which makes it case insensitive. And then you kind of treat it the same way. So your search filter, this is a basic contains query. There's your search term, which is prepared. Here, the code and description are already guaranteed, in my case, to be uppercase. Regular expression, I mean, it looks very, very similar, but it's just regular expression match. It's kind of a progressive enhancement to do both. Oh, I've got a duplicate slide. How about that? Then how do you use it? You just OR them together and you short circuit on the basic match, because the regular expression could be quite costly, but if it matches on the basic match first, that returns true. And I showed that with the res and then the digit. And so there you go. It's just a couple of simple lookup fields and Bob's your uncle. You have like super powerful search that just works for 90% of your users and also works for like your power users who want to use a regular expression. Third and final tip, pseudo random sampling in Tableau. So the context for this is that Statistics Canada does their consumer price index, which has a shelter component. They asked us and many other municipalities to provide a representative sample of accounts for a 5-year longitudinal study. So that came up for renewal. And they also asked for a note about methodology, which implied that reproducibility would be desirable. So if you're used to R, you might think, okay, we could set seed or Python, maybe import random. Or if you're using NumPy, I mentioned Webby. Oops. We don't have a random function in Webby. And Tableau's random function is both undocumented and non-deterministic. So those are a couple of problems there. So behind the scenes, here's just some stuff taken straight from the Wikipedia article about linear congruent generators. And what Webby can't do is recursive calculations. So ordinarily we would use Webby at the city, but here Tableau does. And so all you need to do is find parameters for a modulus, a multiplier, an increment, and a starting value or a seed. And Tableau will take care of that for you. So previous value, I've got here with parameters for seed, the A, C, and M characteristics or parameters. You could also do it, as I've done here in this teeny tiny demo. You could set up a given source from a well-known implementation of one of these generators, and then conditionally, this is not interactive. Okay, well, what's here is still valid. So I've provided a seed and the parameters from the ZX81 implementation of this random generator. So you provide a seed of 42, and it takes this raw word list, which is the Electronic Frontier Foundation's large word list for password generation. And each time it gives you this random enough set. So the top 5 here will always change, and all you have to do is pass in a parameter. The nice thing is that the reproducibility part, so when we wrote to Statistics Canada, we give them, we're using this linear congruent generator with the parameters for A, C, and M, and here's our seed, and anybody who takes the input and those values will always be able to generate this random set of 140 accounts in the same way, which is really nice. And that just leverages table calcs in Tableau. So there's the issue of switching different recipes. And again, these are just lifted from Wikipedia, and it's a couple of fields in the table calc. So it's an unusual case for Tableau, but reproducible pseudo-random sampling, Tableau can do that for you too. And with that, I say thank you and go looking to the chat for some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Iain. Very interesting presentation. And yeah, we'll open up the forum for questions.
I gotta love this. Thank you, Zareen. I'm glad you loved it. I will take that as validation. And I believe then, Zareen, you speak for everybody? Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Iain. We'll make a little change in the agenda. Before we go on break, we'd like to have Shah, Gill, do his part of the presentation. Then hope everybody's okay with this. We have to make the adjustment. Shah needs to run, but we can do his presentation, then we'll take the 5-minute break, and hopefully that will be okay with the team here. Give me just a second. Just a quick recap here. So for Shah, he's the lead solutions engineer at Tableau, and he's going to introduce some new features about Tableau. As I said, we'll open up the forum for additional questions if you like before he leaves. So thank you, Shah, for your time, and the mic's yours.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks for the introduction and also for accommodating the late schedule change. But I promise I won't keep you long. This should be a fairly quick update. So what's new in 2021.4? Can you see my screen? I think it might have just stopped the share. Let me just try again. Do you see my screen? Can anyone confirm? Yep, okay, good. Let's get into it. So 2021.4, as you can see, there's something in this release for everybody, from Slack, if you use that, to metrics updates, maps. The common theme with all of our releases is we're really extending the capabilities that we can do with the geospatial mapping and mapping features. Web authoring is increasing the parity, bringing it as close to Tableau desktop as possible with each release. For mobile connectors, more and more connectors, Ask data, lots of improvements there, and data management, and also the economy, so the exchange and accelerators. So let's get into some of these features. So the first thing is, it's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. You can share Ask Data vizzes in Slack. So if you use Slack, clicking the share button in the top right corner, you can directly send Ask Data visualizations through Slack to your team members. Metrics. So this is something that came out quite a while ago. And really, metrics allow you to pick certain KPIs from multiple dashboards and consolidate them and collect them in one location. So you can track all your important metrics from different dashboards in one spot. And now when you create a metric, you can now adjust the date range, configure the historical comparison, and set status indicators as well. And most importantly, you're now able to individually embed metrics on web pages as well. Edit published data sources. So whether you're creating a new published data source or if you're editing an existing published data source, you can now create joins and edit the schema from the data source page itself. Then you can use a Scratchpad to test your changes, create folders, organize hierarchies, and rename fields and aliases before publishing your data source, all without ever leaving Tableau. So previously, only data sources that were embedded in workbooks could be edited, but now in Tableau Online and Tableau Server, you have that full edit data source capability as well. So this is along that theme of, bringing everything that we're able to do and love doing in Tableau Desktop, being able to do it on the web now as well. And you'll see with each release, we just get closer and closer to the parity between the two. Search with quick links. So on Tableau Online or Tableau Server, before typing in a search query, you can now select quick links of popular content types or owners of recent content that you viewed. And you can also type in your search query to search across all content types and site users. So save time, discover your data and analysis faster using quick links. And you can see through the animation here. Search by owner quickly, different types, etc. So just a little more robust searching capability here. Ask data improvement. So if you have questions about the structure of a lens or how to use it, you can send feedback directly back to the author by clicking that little I information icon. And also, if you find that you're using Ask Data, but some of the names of the fields are not user-friendly or business-friendly, they may be just not good enough, you're able to rename those items for each lens now as well. And yeah, again, I guess Ask Data is the big ticket on this release. Lots and lots of improvements for Ask Data. So you can now use terms previously reserved for analytical functions. So previously, terms found in a data source, field names and values were ignored by Ask Data. But now it can treat terms like average and group and filter and limit and sort and date, just like any other form of data. So it lets you analyze data sources without needing to revise their contents. You can also query fields with table calculations. Be aware that you cannot include filters and limits or year-over-year difference comparisons in your query for these calculations. And of course, you can now ask data lenses to your favorites as well. So when you're on the Tableau server, your little favorites tab on the left-hand side, it can now contain ask data lenses as well. Replay animation. So this is something I have a lot of fun doing when you're creating content, is to actually animate it so you can kind of tell a story piece by piece, step by step. And now you can replay animations in dashboards and stories and worksheets wherever you use Tableau, right? You can see in that screenshot up there, you click that replay button and you can choose the speed at which you want to replay. So the actual speed, 2 times the speed, or half speed. And this is also very exciting. So multiple data sources with geographic layers. You can build maps now with geographic layers using multiple data sources. So simply connect your data sources, connect your geospatial data, and just drag it out onto the canvas and onto the marks control. You can layer on top of multiple different geographic data sources. Yeah, this is kind of a small ticket item, but very, very useful, very practical. You can now copy and paste dashboard objects. Even between sheets and dashboards, you can copy from one sheet to another sheet or from one dashboard to another dashboard. And that's pretty much it for 21.4. We are expecting a new release very shortly in the coming weeks. And when that does come out, we're happy to come back in the next time to talk about the latest and greatest. But for now, here are some resources that I'll share and put in the chat for all you folks as well.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Shah. Very interesting. And let's see if we have any questions in our chat. I think we don't really have any questions. If not, then let's take a break. 5-minute break, so it's 12:50. We'll meet you back at 12:55. And just a quick note before you guys leave, if you're not planning probably on rejoining, If you happen to know a software project manager, we're looking for one in Onward. So it would be nice if you could refer to someone you know would be or is looking for an opportunity. Please ask the person to reach out to me. Thank you. I'll see you back at 12:55.
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you. All right. Should be starting in a few seconds. Okay. Our next speaker is Daniel Kearns. Daniel is an up-and-coming business analyst with a curious attitude and a keen eye for detail. He joined Freson Brothers in 2020 after completing his Bachelor of Commerce degree in the University of Alberta. Together with the Freson Analytics team, Daniel investigates data, develops reports, uncovers insights, generates efficiencies, and champions innovation and technology across the organization. Things that note today are the same as they navigate the company into new markets during a turbulent period of rising costs, shipping delays, COVID adjustments, and other unique challenges. Thank you, Daniel, for taking the time, and the mic is yours.
Great, thanks, Carlos. Just share my screen real quick. That looks right on your end. No. Perfect, thank you. So yeah, hi everyone. My name is Daniel, and I am a business analyst at Freson Brothers, and I'd like to sort of show what we do here with Tableau and how we can make use of it. So yeah, thanks for coming. First, just quick about me. I'm a business analyst at Freson Brothers, been here about 1.5 years. And it's sort of been passed on to me the role of maintaining most of our Tableau reports at the moment. Also, I'm pretty excited about pursuing a master's degree this September. That's kind of the next journey in my life here. But in the meantime, here for Freson Bros. Also, I just have a quick fun fact to share with you to start off on the bright side. Uncopyrightable is the longest English word that does not repeat a letter. So, you know, save that for some party later. I'm sure you'll be the most popular one there. Freson Bros is a small Alberta grocer. We have 16 stores, mostly in small towns across the province. It's been around for 65 years, and the focus is really on community and being a part of the community we live in and sharing that with our customers. We did kind of an intro video with AMA, I want to say about 1 year ago. It captures this really well, so I'd like to share it with you now. Let me know if audio doesn't work or anything crazy happens.
This is Frank Loveson.
Hi.
And his sons.
Mike, Ken,
and
Doug. My dad came to Alberta in 1926. He came from Slovenia, and he ended up in the coal mining town of Mountain Park, Alberta. I was born in Mountain Park, Alberta in 1934.
And in grade 10, Frank came home to his mother, who was crying.
And my mother said they closed the coal mine down, and that was the day that I grew up.
And started getting odd jobs to help out.
And then I got a job in the butcher shop in Edson.
By 21, he decided to partner with a friend, and combining their talents and their names, Freson Brothers was born.
We opened up our first store on skids in Hinton.
1955.
There was no roads, there was no electricity, there was no water, there was no sewer. And we thought we had a great opportunity.
And they did. The community response was amazing, so they grew.
You know, we added eggs, and then we added some milk, and then we added bananas.
You know what else was bananas?
Is we'd get some good people, train them up, and they'd leave. That's one of the reasons that we expanded, really. I needed to hold on to my talent.
Speaking of talent, they had some bright prospects on the farm team.
If you're a kid on the farm and your dad says you're going to pick rocks, you're picking rocks. When we grew up, that's what it was. We're going to the store on Sunday, you're cleaning the incinerator.
And sweeping the parking lot too.
And by the time they were 12, 13, they knew quite a bit about the business.
And yes, we all went, you know, our own way. University and college and pro hockey career.
Team Canada silver medal, Lillehammer 94, just saying. But they all found their way back because...
part of a team, right? And your family is your team.
And every great team has a great well, Granny.
Yeah, that's right. That's my name. I'm Granny.
I couldn't have done it without her, that's for sure.
And they also couldn't do it without.
Our community is extremely important, and we have a tremendous amount of respect for all of the farmers and all of the producers.
You know, we're trying to buy as much local in produce.
We have the best beef in the world, and actually we have the best grain in the world that makes the best flour in the world. And believe it or not, cantaloupe is grown in Alberta.
I never thought in my whole life that we'd buy Alberta melons, and they're fantastic.
Sometimes we make it more complicated than it really is, and it's not. Good stuff makes good stuff.
People know that. They can taste it. And if we're not careful by not supporting local, if you keep fragmenting your community, pretty soon you don't have a community.
And that's a problem, because
The community is the backbone of Freson Brothers. You know, we're about family, community, and our heritage.
a Loveson heritage moment.
You know, the sourdough bread is the best in Alberta. It is. And we're recognized for that.
I wasn't even aware that they had a vault that they stored sourdough.
There is a library in Belgium where you can submit your mother dough.
So they submitted theirs.
And we were just accepted.
And we have to send the Alberta flour to them to feed it every day. And it's fed every day.
This has been a Loveson heritage moment. And another one is right on the horizon. Because after 65 years and 14 stores in smaller centers, Freson Brothers is headed to the city, Edmonton.
Big smoke. Going to the show, baby. The store that we're going to be very proud to open up in Edmonton is a culmination of every lesson that we've learned over the last 65 years. Our stores are authentic. Our stores are unique. What we're taking is the essence of what was started by Mom and Dad in 1955. Look after each other. Look after those that you work with. Look after your family. Look after your community. And you'll be fine.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If I don't get at least one wow out of you, I'll give you $100.
Frank, you can't end it like that. Now we have to put up a whole page of type telling everyone that they won't actually get $100. Anyone else want to take a crack at closing this out?
From all of us at Freson Brothers, we want to wish everybody a happy family day.
Boom! Clutch move from the Olympian. Well, Loveson family, we want to wish you a happy family day too.
So yeah, that's our kind of our story. The video was made just before the new store opened. I saw a couple just worries about my screen. It's all good now, I'm hoping. Sorry, I hid some things. On a laptop, so I only have one visual. Anyhow, that video.
This is Frank Loveson.
Hi.
And his.
There we go. Did a great job introducing our new store. Its birthday is on Saturday, actually. So it's been exactly a year now that this Edmonton expansion has been underway. It was weeks, if not the first month, where we had lineups out the door of people that just wanted to see what we had to offer. It's not just a grocery store. There's a great restaurant in there. There's like fresh cinnamon buns and all sorts of things that make us as unique and special. And we do look to carry sort of Alberta and local as much as we can. So that's been kind of our, the good and then the direction of the organization lately. Of course, the not so good is there's been some COVID challenges lately. I'm sure you all remember the toilet paper debacle right when we first started. There's been some unpredictable factors as a result of COVID-19. So spikes in demand that we can't predict that cause us to be short, and also supply shortages. So we kind of get hit on both sides there. That is not good. It makes it really hard to keep the shelves full and to make sure that we're serving our customers the way they expect. Also, just with the pandemic, people have been out sick more, or we've had to isolate. And that's hard to work around. The government policies, they come in, they go away, they change, all of that we have to stay on top of. A grocery store is a vital business. You can't shut down the grocery stores. So throughout all of this, we've had to work hard to stay open and to work with the policies as they come. And then finally, changing consumer behavior. So the people change their habits, right? They're working from home, and that means they're not sort of stopping after work at the grocery store. They don't want to be in public as much, so they're coming for bigger shops less frequently. All of that sort of factors into our equations, and we have to try to account for that going forward. So that's sort of the background on where we're at. I'd like to sort of segue into Freson Bros plus Tableau. Quick caveat is that because this is sort of just an open presentation, I can't get into a lot of detail. So it's more of a tale in the same way that Iain's was, where I'll explain our process and our approach to some of the problems we had and point out where Tableau really made a difference for us. But I don't have a lot of visuals or live demos to show, unfortunately. I would say at a high level, the first and most intuitive use for Tableau is at the director executive level. How do we summarize our sales for the week? We can track our labor. We can watch through all of the different KPI metrics that are important to different departments and different levels of the organization. But that all happens at the operations office. And what I want to focus on today is, instead of how does Tableau help Freson corporate, I really want to highlight how we found a way to make Tableau effective in the stores for the managers and the team members that are working every day, stocking the shelves and cutting our meat and all of the things that still need to happen that Tableau can help facilitate, but it's a different challenge. So these are the case studies I am going to take you through today. First one. So number one is called Checkstand Planning. So we want to anticipate how many cashiers we're going to need in a given hour. There's lots of different approaches to this, and we settled for something simpler that was easy to reproduce and that we could use our existing Tableau infrastructure to create. So this is the sort of final output. We have it's a Google sheet that's shared with the stores that they can then print and post. One thing that's going to come up a lot is that the stores are they're not always in front of a computer. Logging into the Tableau server, even like having an email report usually isn't quite good enough. It needs to be something printable and distributable away from technology completely. So that's one of the things this accomplishes. You can see here it's been filled out, but what our Tableau output does is it generates this set of numbers here. It says, for every hour of every day in every store, how many cashiers do we anticipate needing? And we have sort of a three-step formula to come up with these numbers. First, we need a distribution factor. This is using a reference week. Ideally, that's the same week the year before. And then we are trying to calculate a units projection based on the sales distribution and then adjusting for a price parity. We're going to multiply that by a store inputted inflation adjustment and a targeted weekly sales. The inflation is because it's been significant in the past year, the past 2 years, and if we don't account for that, we will overestimate our projected units a little bit. The target weekly sales comes from the store managers, and it's sort of the most challenging thing we've had to work around. So I'll get into a little bit more detail on that in a second. And then we convert the unit sales to the cashiers using some benchmarks that we calculated along the way. So that's sort of the overview. It gets, I won't go any more detail than that, but that's how we came up with it. Where we use Tableau, at the beginning, we put it entirely in Tableau. All of those inputs we collected, we added as parameters in our Tableau workbooks, and it just spit out nice grid of these numbers here for every day in pink. But a challenge we saw with that was that these inputs from the store managers, we needed to collect them ahead of time. So it made it hard where we were waiting on the stores to give us a target sales projection. Then the stores were waiting on analytics to return a completed checkstand planning report. So the solution was to pull some of the calculations away from Tableau and put them into, just embed them right in the spreadsheet. And that way we can let the store managers put their target projection directly in the spreadsheet. And that sort of, no one's waiting on anyone anymore. We can produce these ahead of time and they can update them as soon as their projections are ready. So quick sort of results and extensions, how we did the results of this project. Adding checkstand planning helps the stores a lot. It simplifies the scheduling for managers. They don't have to think about this. They just see the numbers that we give them every week and assign the shifts as needed to cover it. They use their judgment on top of it for things that the algorithm can't account for. There's a rodeo in town that week. If the weather's looking particularly bad or particularly good, that might need to shift some things. It also just helped line up our cashiers with our labor. It's one of our core pillars is customer service, and so to make sure we have adequate staffing so no one's waiting in a long line. And then on the flip side as well, making sure that we're not overstaffed. We don't have 5 people waiting to serve one customer. That's not a good look, and it doesn't help us any either. That's what happened. The next steps we're going for is to try to automate more of this process. Right now, it's still a weekly fixed activity that we need to produce these spreadsheets for every store. And we've smoothed out some of the edges, but it's still pretty taxing. So trying to have it more automated is always a good thing. The projected targets that I was talking about earlier, one of the directions we're trying to go is to use some data science algorithms to build a better analytics projection to start the stores off with. Right now, the stores have their own sort of rules of thumb to figure out what they think they'll do each week that is then applied to the distribution of checkstand planning. But it'd be better for them if we could give them a range, give them a ballpark to start their estimates off with. And then finally, we feel like we're using Google Sheets too much. And the more we can move away from Google Sheets, either to like a dedicated platform for scheduling, or if there's a Tableau solution that works better, that's always a good thing. Google Sheets are hard to maintain and hard to keep straight. Again, the challenge though is that our stores don't have huge reliance on technology. So it's much easier for someone in the store to log into a shared spreadsheet than to log into a Tableau server. So we kind of have to find compromises along the way. So that finishes checkstand planning. The next case I want to walk you through is called cases per thousand. It's an ordering tool to help the stores figure out how many cases they should order. And it's flexible in that it's, again, based on a projection. So if a meat manager thinks they're going to make X dollars this week or this month, they put in their projection and it'll just spit out a breakdown of how many cases of each different cut of meat, or in bakery, how many loaves of bread, that kind of thing. So we have sort of just a quick approach again to run you through. This is all done in Tableau. So we're calculating a sales distribution for each product for the department. We're estimating the quantity sold of that sales distribution per $1,000, just to keep the numbers a little bit more real, or tangible, I should say. And then we're converting quantities to cases. So it's just a really smooth, and we baked it completely into Tableau, where it's looking at our historical data and generating a PDF that store managers can use to create a baseline for ordering their products. So for each product, managers now have a ballpark on how many cases they should order if they anticipate X dollars in sales. That's the outcome. It moves the equation from how many dollars did I sell, which is generally what their reporting shows, to how many cases did I sell given a certain dollar amount. And that's a really helpful distinction in a lot of cases. So these are some of the calculated fields that kind of come up with this calculation. We sort of troubleshooted to get down to using some level of detail to fix the total sales by department so we can get the distribution to calculate properly for us. You'll notice we've hard coded the case counts down here. So there's room to improve, but this gives a really good baseline to start with, and it lets us automate this. We can generate a new one every day, every week, and it's very flexible. So again, results and extensions. As a result, managers have a better metric than sales dollars to order with. That's sort of the top line. Reporting, one report works for all stores. We could split it out, and we have in some cases, but generally we're taking total company distribution and giving it out to the stores just as a place to start with. It's also completely automated. It's totally hands-off. They get a PDF, they can print it out, they can distribute it. Everything works really smooth that way. Some extensions right now, a flaw in the algorithm that we've designed is that if something goes on sale, we're going to anticipate that it'll sell again more in the future. That's usually not the case. Usually it'll have one heavy week and then kind of come back down to normal. And we haven't fully adjusted for that yet. The other thing that we're lacking is because it's a PDF, there's no user input on the projection. With the sort of live online Tableau version has this, but that's not very helpful to the stores. So we gave them sort of a ballpark saying the report has 5 different benchmark sales numbers on it. And if the store managers want to pick something in between, they have to do a little interpolation or something. But it's still, again, it's a benchmark. It helps the ordering run smoothly. And generally, we've had really good feedback on it being useful for the stores. Finally, this is kind of a more interesting project with some more visuals, is we want to, we've been searching to evaluate the end caps. So our end caps are known to be, we think they're very valuable real estate, right? Every customer that has to check out walks through them or walks by them. They're big and they're flashy and they're on the ends. So how can we best take advantage of that? Lost my slides here. There we go. So here's here's an end cap. And just broadly speaking, we want to answer all of these questions. Which items should we put on the ends? Are there certain items that we'll see a better lift when we put them on the end, and certain items that people are only buying like on a regular schedule, so seeing it on an end, they're not going to change their pattern any. What are the best performing ends? These are 2 sides of the same coin, and lots of the data is mixed together, but which ends perform well, regardless of what item we put on them? Is there one that's in line of the front door? Is there one that's right across the milk case or something like that just moves products faster? It doesn't matter what we put on it. Another important analysis we can get from this is how often should we switch the ends? And so this is measured in our data as how long the end has been active, and we can sort of see a drop off in sales. Sometimes the ends have a practical use. If we order a lot of something, we'll put it on an end until it sells through. So it's not always practical to remove something ahead of time, but it's still a good question to know is what are the diminishing returns on putting a new item on an end cap? And then finally, how much should we discount items on an end? Should we discount them at all? Or just putting it on an end, create enough movement to create enough excitement on its own? And then, should we add some sales, especially like giving the stores discretion to apply their own discounts on these items as opposed to following the sort of the company standard sales schedule that we set out. Now, of course, none of this NCAP data is captured in the tills sales data that we normally use. So we had to build an application to let the stores capture this data, and it looks like this. So there's an iOS app that every store iPad has. They scan each SKU on each end cap whenever it changes over, and we added QR codes to each end to help the stores identify the ends in our data set. So this is the data capture solution. The more items on an end, it's more onerous on the stores. So we're trying to find a healthy balance on, maybe we can't capture everything, but we just focus on the key ends that are on the outside of the store, or that they turn over the most often. They put their best products on it, and at least get some starting numbers before we can generate some insights for them. After we capture the data, we have some processing steps. This is where we convert the output from the app to a Tableau report that we share with store managers. So we need to collect and clean the input data. This comes to us as a CSV every week. We built a Python script to convert data that is not weekly into weekly data. So we are sort of pulling forward last week and then updating it if there has been any new scans of that particular end in that store. We are then going to feed that data into a table that we have that Tableau reads from. So we now have a nice tabular data set that Tableau can use. And those Tableau reports are then subscribed to store managers, and as well as the sort of head office key people that want to track the effectiveness of the NCAP. This process is still pretty long, and we'd like to make it better and more automated, especially on the cleaning side. But just the way the data is captured, it's still fairly manual on both ends. And it's a lot of work to get into unlocking this data. But we see valuable insights once we can really dig into it. So we have two Tableau reports that we produce. One is a summary. So for each end cap, just as a whole, we're reporting on its build date. We're reporting how many items there are, the distribution among all end caps. Is this accounting for 20% of total end cap sales, that kind of thing. And then just some total sales metrics as well. We have a companion that's sort of a detailed breakout for each end cap, list every item that's currently on the end cap, and isolate its performance as well. So usually these reports are used together. They'll take a look at the summary, identify an end cap they're particularly interested in, and move on to investigate its details more fully. So the results of this NCAP analytics project, we significantly improved the visibility of NCAP performance. Like, just as a base, there is no more guessing. We can see for sure how the NCAPs are doing, and it's the first time we have any of this kind of data. So it's very interesting to a lot of decision makers in head office. We have direct reporting on store specials. If they put something on an end cap versus they don't, that's important to know. And then it also lets stores learn from one another. So if a particularly item sold well on an end cap in one store, we can now share that knowledge with other stores. And it's better than before. Store managers, they always have a sense of how quickly an end moves. It's based almost solely on how often they have to fill it back up, how quickly it gets emptied. But now we have some data to back up those assumptions and those gut feelings. Some extensions to this project that we're still looking into is automate the data cleaning like I talked about. Also to extend from this data. At the moment, we're really just reporting on the sales, but we can absolutely start providing recommendations on what to put on ends. We can analyze which ends are best performing ends and try to look through why. Okay, where can we extend this data, and how can we develop even more value that way? And then there's a sort of an annoying mix-up that happens is the till, the customers don't report at the till where they picked up an item from. So if they picked up the craft dinner from the end, or they picked up craft dinner from the shelf, there's no way for us to tell at the till. Right now, we've decided that we're just allocating all sales to the end while an item is on an end, because we assume that that's the majority of them, but we don't really have a better way to break that out yet. And that is definitely something to extend on these in the future. So yeah, that is the end of my 3 case studies and the end of everything I prepared. So I suppose now I can just open up to some questions and hear some of your feedback.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel, for that presentation. We do have a question from Roger. What are you thinking as an alternative to Google Sheets?
That's a great question, and I wish there was a clean answer, because we are using Google Sheets far too much as it is. It seems to be our go-to whenever we need to share something with the stores, whenever we need to like collaborate on something. And it does really well for that, but for storing data, it's not the best solution. What we'd like to do for Checkstand Planning specifically is we're in the process of setting up a new payroll system that eventually will have scheduling in it. So we're thinking that maybe we can move the scheduling module into there and feed it some of the projections ourselves. That's more of a longer term outlook though. The other thing we want to do is just start thinking about, you know, if we're using a Google Sheet for a while, then we should probably just change it and set it up as a SQL table, or set it up even just as like some sort of locally hosted database or data connection. We've tried Tableau Extracts in the past for that as well. They have their pros and cons, and that's kind of the solution. But really, the short end of it is we're still using Google Sheets a lot, and we haven't found a great way to move away from them as quickly as I'd like. You know.
And we have thank you for that. And then Iain is asking us, when benchmarking, comparing against the same week from the previous year, ISO week numbers seem straightforward enough for a lot of cases. How do you handle movable dates, notably Easter?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing to mention is that our ISO weeks don't work great because our week's starting date is a Friday. It's just a grocery thing. So we have a little bit of an adjustment to make there to start with. One of the reasons we haven't automated Checkstand Planning fully is because the reference week selection is still has a human intervention to it. So when we're projecting for Easter next year, instead of using the same ISO week, we would use Easter week last year. And that's kind of the solution for now. I guess that's the quick answer.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thanks for the talk.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's see, we have any other questions? Okay, if there are not questions, then as we mentioned at the beginning, we'd love to hear from you. Please fill out the feedback form. As I said, there's a chance to win some prizes there. So at the same time, you know, we get important information to make our talks better. Don't forget to join the Edmonton Tableau User Group Forum. It's a useful tool to get some insights, ask questions, get information. Good way to interact and see how others are potentially using, you know, the Tableau tool in their businesses. Don't forget to register for the Tableau conference. We'll be sending out invites for the for the next session that we'll have here in Edmonton. And don't forget to look out for the Canada Talk invite. It should be coming in the next days. Connect with us on LinkedIn as well. And more than happy to hear from you if you want to have receive more information, ask more questions, direct questions. Here are the emails of the participants from today. So yeah, very nice, very happy to be hosting this first TUG of the year. As I said at the beginning again, if you happen to know someone in software project management, please let me know. We'd like to have someone join our team and help us with our projects. Other than that, thank you for participating and look forward to connecting again in our next TUG.
Thanks for hosting. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everybody.